So in this video, I'm talking about the organizer, and I've gone ahead and worked out every single problem, and I'm calling it Organizer Solutions. Now I've sent you a blank organizer, so you can work them out if you'd like to, and then I've sent you all my solutions. So here I'm going to go through every single problem, just like this was a lecture in class. So if you have any questions at all, because I made such a terrible error, just email me. And then I'm always open to students emailing me. So if we're simplifying this fraction, I'm looking to divide by a number that goes into both of them. And to be honest with here, I find the quickest number that I can divide these by. It's not always the least common denominator, and I might have to simplify several times, but it makes it quick for me. So I know these are both divided by 5/7. There you go. Now looking at this one, this is changed. Let's go in order. Sorry. So once again, this goes in the exact same order as all the quizzes you take in this section. Here, I really suggest when you're doing your work, have your handouts by your side. Always. That is not cheating at all. Have your handouts by your side. Look in Google, look in ChatGPT so you can get understanding of how to do it. So here with 69 over 90, I know both are divided by 3 or divisible by 3. And I do that, and I get 23 divided by 30. And I recognize that I can't reduce that fraction anymore, so I'm done. Let me zoom in a little bit. There we go. So then the next one, let's see. The next one is changed to a decimal, 3/4. I just show you which calculator strokes to do. And it's 3 divided by 4. That's what you press on the calculator. And you get 0.75. So hopefully you're okay with that one. Now, looking to the other ones, here we go. Once again, decimal, showing you how to do it on a calculator, just to make sure you know the keystrokes. 4 divided by 5, 0.8. In my years of teaching, decades of teaching, students often ask, is it 4 divided by 5 or is it 5 divided by 4 on the calculator? Which is it? So for that one, look back to the original fraction, and then hopefully you recognize that as a number that's less than 1. So you really could do both calculations on your calculator and see which one's less than 1. And notice that this is less than 1, 0.8 or 0.8. If you did the reverse calculations, 5 divided by 4, you'd get 1.2 there. And then I show you the by hand option, but you'll always be able to use a calculator on quizzes and tests. So number 5, change the percent to a decimal. If you remember that rule, the decimal is right there. I didn't put it when I was writing these, and I should have, because what you do in changing anything to a decimal is in changing a percent to a decimal, if you can imagine the decimal is right there, you move the decimal to the left 2 times, and that's 0.51. It's also, you can do 51 divided by 100. And that would be 0.51 on your calculator. And you would choose 100, 100, because 51 has 2 digits. And 100, it has the 2 zeros. And that's the important thing. All right, let's go on to number 6. And we're changing this decimal to a fraction. So it's really the opposite of what we just did. I chose to divide it by 100 because there's two numbers here. There's 2 decimal places. And we have 2 zeros there. So if this is a new problem, if it was 0.653, well, you would just divide it by 1,000 because there's 3 digits there. But 65, there's 2 digits divided by 100. We get, I went ahead and reduced it by 5 because I know that both of those are divisible by 5. And we get 13/20. So let's go to the next one. This is what you can expect in class many, many times, is I'm solving problems and you're writing and asking questions. And I really, really do love it when students ask questions. That's really the only way to learn. So change this decimal to a fraction. So I put the 2.34, same reasoning, 34 over 100. and I just left the 2 because it's a whole number. And I show you here what I'm reducing it by, dividing it by 2, and then we get 17/50ths. And, I take a second look. Can I reduce that by something else, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5? And the answer is no, and that's it. You always have to ask yourself that question, can you reduce it by something else? And that's the thing about math is you just have to force yourself to go as slow as you possibly can. Honestly, that's why I write out all the steps, even when I'm doing math. It forces me to slow down and think about that answer. So, hope that helps. Now, for here, I'm just showing you how to rationalize these with a calculator. You might have been shown this all your life, that something like 0 divided by 6 is 0, and then 4 divided by 0 is undefined. Well, what does that mean? Undefined, right? What does that mean? Unfortunately, we're not in class. I could show you what that means, kind of like on a graph. But here I chose to show you on a calculator because you'll always have a calculator. So 0 divided by 6, hopefully press 0 divided by 6 on your calculator. It'll give you 0. But if you type in 4 divided by 0 on your calculator, it'll give you an error every single time. And that's called undefined, we don't know. And in the very, very huge questions about what that literally means, if you're interested, I can show you more about what that means and why that is an error. But here, I would always say, use your calculator, use your calculator. It'll show you the right answer if you know how to enter it correctly, of course. This one's a little bit longer, number 9. And we go change to a mixed number. So I'm showing you by hand how to do it, because that's really how you have to do it. We're dividing 17 divided by 3. Hopefully that's, in your calculator it would be 17 divided by 3, but you'd get a big old decimal. You get that decimal. So by hand, we're long division. 3 goes into 17 5 times. And if you remember, then the 5 times 3 is 15. And we're subtracting 2. So the answer is 5 2/5. I'm so sorry, that's a 3. See, I have the 3 right there. So that answer, look at me, I caught an error. That's 5 2/3. See 2/3 left over? 5 2/3 left over. I didn't catch my error writing, but I caught it down here. Because what I'm doing here is checking that the 5 2/3 answer is correct. So this is the checking by calculator. I do 17 by 3 on the calculator, divided by 9, and I get the 5.666, repeating. Then I do 5 plus 2 divided by 3. See, I caught my error. That's 2/3. Oops. Oh my goodness. So I caught my error. That's really 2/3 right there. So that's supposed to be 2/3. And I do 2/3, 2 divided by 3 on the calculator, and I add it to 5, and I get the 5.6. Now this, because on my calculator I did it this way, and then I did it the other way, and they both have the same answers. We did it right, although I didn't add it. I didn't write it correctly. So let's go on to number 10. And the great thing about video is you can watch it again. So that's a wonderful thing. But you can't ask questions. But here, once again, always email me questions. I check my email all the time, constantly. Now here is find the least common denominator of these fractions here. And this is, as long as I've been teaching math, these acronyms, students are like, what does it mean? Because we have so many. Least common denominator. It is the smallest number, least, that all of these will go into least common denominator. And remember, see the number on the bottom is called the denominator. So we're going to eventually, this sets us up for converting these fractions so we can add them or subtract them. Now I show you 2 ways here. The least common denominator is 5 times 6 is 30. Notice that 6 will go into 30, and 5 will go into 30, and then 2 goes into 30. Well, let's say you don't remember all the methods, tricks for finding the actual least common denominator. And I always do this. This is a little bit of the lazy way out. I just multiply 2 times 5 times 6, and that will guarantee me a number that all of them go into. Really, I'm a math teacher, and I do not find the least common denominator. I don't. I like to memorize as few rules as possible. So I go with the higher denominator, knowing that I always have to simplify the fraction. And you always have to do that. So once again, you can choose to realize the least common denominator, how to get that, or just multiply all the bottom. And we're going to do a lot of addition of fractions, and you'll see what I mean. So looking at number 11 here, they start us off nice and easy. Well, fractions, so many people don't like fractions, but since they have the same number on the bottom, here we go. Simply, that's the rule, is you just add the top 4/8. So 1/8 plus 3/8 is 4/8. And if you're someone who likes to cook or bake or build, measure, this could make sense to you. 1/8 cup plus 3/8 cups equals 4/8 of a cup. And you may already realize that's a half if you do any cooking or baking or building or measuring. Or you're all in nursing programs, so many of you already this makes sense. But let's go through now how to reduce this fraction, because whenever you have a fraction, you just have to always think, can I reduce that fraction to simplest terms? So here, 4/8, I realize that both of these numbers are divisible by 2. See here, so I just 4 divided by 2, I get 2/4. Now, because I didn't choose the least common denominator, I'm a little bit lazy of a mathematician, but I simply have to ask, can I reduce that fraction again? I always ask that question, and here you see that they are both divisible by 2, and that's how you get the 1/2. So hopefully that one makes sense. There's a whole lot of steps there. Let me know if there's a question. Now on number 12, there's even more steps, and we're at 12 minutes on the video. But you'll be asked this one, absolutely, on your knowledge checks. This will be a very similar question. Bunch of fractions. I found the LCD. But once again, here I multiplied 10 times 14, realizing that's the LCD. And the thinking here is you don't have to do all those steps that you were taught long ago in math. You really don't. Look at 7 and 14. You realize 7 goes into 14. So if I just do 10 times 14, 7 is going to go into that answer. Now, if that doesn't make sense right now, let's stick with, okay, I'm going to go with the 140, and then you'll see how later you can simply reduce the fractions. You really can. Now, this step here, converting fractions, and this is also like converting a rate. You might have a problem like that. Here I showed you all the steps. I wrote the answer, but what you do is 140 divided by 10, there's the numbers there, equals 14. And then you take that 14 and you multiply it times that 1, and that's the 14. That's how I got the 14. You may remember in your math class, I don't want to write on my computer screen, but you may remember your math teacher doing a little loop like that. That's how they got it. 14 divided by 10, 14. And you take that and you multiply it times the top number. And that's what I did on all of them. I listed out all of the steps. I'll always list out all the steps in case you're curious. So divided and then multiplied. Now these are equivalent fractions. So if you divided 1 divided by 10 on your calculator and 14 divided by 140 on your calculator, you'd get the same thing. So you do all this math, look at all those areas that you could mess up. That's terrible, I realize it. We're going to add these fractions. I'm going to now add these 3. See here? And I just add the tops, just like I did before, 14 plus 50 plus 88. Now I can reduce it, and if you recognize 144 is bigger than 140. So I take a 1 out, and I have 4 left over. So you do 144 minus 140, and you have 4 left over. There you go. And then realize here, hopefully, that you can divide both of these by 2, and the answer is 1 and 2/70. 1 and 2/70. Now here you'd want to think here, can you reduce that fraction more? And luckily you can't here. All right, let's keep going. And from here on out, the problems are really similar, but I'll go through them, of course. And once again, these problems are in the exact same order as all your knowledge checks and quizzes. And once again, I really would suggest when you take any test, just have this handout right by your side and do the problems just like this on every single knowledge check, quiz, and that's, you can do that in college. It is absolute not cheating. It is an open book test. So when I was in college, none of it was online, but many times I would have an open book test. This is the same as an open book test. So please do that, because when you take the midterms, you can't have a book. That's where you have to prove if you learn it or not. Adding, simplifying. Once again, look, LCD is 10, just 5 times 2, boom. Converting the fractions. There's all the reasoning, same as before, and I put it all clearly out. 10 divided by 2, 5 times 1, 5. I know I'm going fast. Everything's written. So notice I have the 2, and I rewrite my new fraction here. 3, and I rewrite my new fraction. I went ahead and added the 2 and the 3. Boom, there you go. And we're adding fractions like before. We just add the top and leave the bottom. There we go, look at that. 5 and 11/10. Now, hopefully here you realize that, oh, the top's bigger than the bottom. So hopefully you know that means that's 1. That is 11/10. See, I have it here. 11/10 is the same as 1 and 1/10, because you have, I wish I'd have written it on it, but you would have a 10 over 10 plus 1 over 10. I'm writing on my computer screen. I don't know if you can see it. That's 11/10. So you see how 10 over 10, you're taking a 10 out of that. You're taking a 10 out of that, and you only have 1 left over. So 10 over 10, if you can't see my writing, is 11/10. And I'll just erase all this later. It's okay. So yeah, big look at all of these steps, all of these places to basically make an error. So you have to make sure you're going really slow. Once again, that's why I write every single step out. That's helping me slow down and not make an error. So the here we're subtracting and simplify. Notice same denominator. So all we have to do is subtract the top 1/5. There you go. And you'll have those easy ones on your quizzes, and you'll have those not nearly as easy. That'll help you get through, or just email me, of course. All right, now here, strange wording, which so many math problems are worded strangely. Subtract and simplify 8 2/3 from 13. So what do you subtract from what? It's the 13 3/4 minus the 8. That's what the from means. So let's go through same process, finding the LCD, 3 times 4. I'm going to convert the fractions so they're the same denominators. And once again, here's all the steps I do. The 12 divided by 3, the 4 times 2 is 8. That's how I got the 8. Here's all the steps. So here is where I wrote 13 and 9/12. I wrote the new fraction, and then minus the 8, but I wrote the new fraction with the 8/12. I went ahead and I separated it, 13 minus 8, and that gives me the 5. And then luckily 9 minus 8 is only the 1, and boom, that's our answer, 5 and 1/12. So, very good. Now, here, you know what I did as a math teacher, honestly, and I'd like you to do the same thing. I Googled 13 3/4 minus 8 2/3. I Googled it to check my answer. And I'm a math teacher. I've been doing this for 30 years. I would like you to get in that habit of the same exact thing, just to check every single one of your answers you possibly can. It helps you when you realize that you're doing it right. It builds your confidence, which is so big in math, because math really just kills so much of our confidence. It's terrible. But multiply. Here we go. Different rules. If you remember the rules of multiplying, and in class, I can show all kinds of visual aids about why this is different. But here, we just have to do the rule: multiply the top, multiply the bottom. Multiply the top. See that we got 15/90ths. And once again, here, always ask that question: can you simplify? Look, I took the lazy way out. I divided by 3 first. Doesn't really matter. I got the 5/30ths. It doesn't matter as long as I ask that question: can I simplify again? And I got the 5, and boom, really super quickly realized that I can divide both of these by 5 and then get the 1/6. Nice. Hopefully you got that one. And we're getting really close. 20 minutes. So here we go. Multiply. They're switching it up. What does that mean? A whole number. First thing I do with teaching any level students, it doesn't matter. I'm rewriting that 20 as 20 over 1. Because 20 written as a fraction is 20 over 1. Same thing. Sometimes with me, once I realize it's over 1, look at that multiplication. I remember that rule on multiplication. Multiply top, multiply bottom. Reduce, always think, can I reduce that fraction? And then we got 10. And once again, ask me. I hope I see 30 questions from y'all, because I made such a terrible mistake. Suppose you could even make fun of me for making that mistake. That'd be terrible. But I want to help y'all a lot. Okay, division is yet again a different rule, and mathematicians, sometimes it seems like they just like to make up a bunch of rules. But there's a way to make sense of this. There truly is, like in a visual way, and I kind of do that down here. And in class, I'll talk about how to approach visually to help make sense of the rule. So the rule, if you remember, divided by, is you invert and multiply. Well, the question is why? But I'll show you a little bit later. There is a why. But if we just trust the rule here, invert and multiply, we multiply, and that's how we get 16/8, and that's 2. Okay, that, if we accept the rule's true, then the answer must be true. But why does the rule work? You can rephrase this question here. How many 1/16 are in 1/8? Now, if you are a baker, or you cook a lot, or you build things and you measure a lot, you might think that 1/16 is a very, very small unit. It's smaller than an eighth. In fact, there's 2/16 in an eighth. So how many 1/16 are in 1/8? So you could look at your ruler and say, wow, 16ths are smaller. 2/16 make an eighth. That's the 2. That's the answer. Or if you're a baker, you could take a 16th measuring spoon, which they're very, very, very small. And then you realize there's 2 of those tiny measuring cups and an 1/8 measuring spoon, which is also small. And that's why it's 2. That proves that rule works. But if that doesn't make any sense, you have to memorize the rule here. All right, so we're on 19 already. Excellent. Look at that. So more division. They're throwing a little bit more complex problems with you each time, but it's the same exact rule. They're really not, on your knowledge checks, they're not throwing too many rules at you, which is really nice. And then once again, all the quizzes and all the tests are all in the same order. We're dividing. Rule is inverted. Multiply, got an answer. Simplify, there's the answer. Now, this might not be accepted as the correct answer, depending on the instructions. If the instructions say give an improper fraction, that's an improper fraction. And improper means that the top number, the numerator, is bigger than the denominator. What that means, what that tells you, is this is more than 1. 5/4. So if you thought about 1/4 of a cup and you had 5/4 of a cup, does that help you visualize that that's one more than a cup? Or it's 1 1/4. And here we go. Because if you had 1 cup, 4/4, hopefully you realize that's 1. And then you had 1/4 left over. So we could break down 5 into 4 plus 1. That's your 5/4. And hopefully that proves to you that 4/4, that becomes that 1 there. And then that 1/4 is without 1/4. There you go. And there's a bunch here to make a mistake on all of these problems. So go slowly, ask questions. Now this problem is really just overkill. This problem, this complicated, is not going to be on your knowledge checks. I hope not, but let's go through it. Notice it's multiplying fractions, so we're just boom, boom, fraction, boom, boom, there. But look, divided by, so invert and multiply, and then hopefully now you're seeing it's the pattern. That math is all about patterns. Multiply the top, multiply the bottom, boom. Pattern is simplify. Took me a minute on a calculator, and I figured out that both were divided by 9. Truly, I picked 9 because I know 180 is divided by 9. And I know that because 18 is divided by 9. So I reached for my calculator and I did, what is 1286 divided by 9 a whole number? And luckily it was. So I'm using as a math teacher, doing this for decades, I'm using my calculator a whole lot to figure out that common denominator, and I got 20 over 144. Boom, I realized 20 is a nice even number, probably divisible by 2 or even 4. And I divided about by 5/36. And here I realized 5 is a prime number, so it's only divisible by 5. That doesn't end in 5 or 0, so that's our entire answer. But you always want to try on your calculator, can you divide it more by 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or sometimes 9, sometimes 11, but you don't usually have to go that high. Now, luckily, I was happy to see this problem because I'm doing it all with a calculator, and you are too, hopefully, on your calculator. Now, on your test, when you take the midterm, you always have you can bring your calculator, of course. I don't want you to use your phone. I want you to actually have a calculator. Or a calculator is provided on the test. So here, keystrokes just do exactly what it says, and you should come up with that answer. But here, make sure that you are using the same calculator over and over, so you are understanding how to enter this on the calculator and get that answer. Understanding your calculator is always a really, really, really big point. All right, so this one I omitted because you don't have like one of those on your tests, so we don't need to do it. And here, I wanted to show you, I gave you a bunch of ratios, which are just fractions. That's all that they are. And I've converted them for you. See, I reduced them for you. And I just wanted to show you these with the words, 18 feet over 12 feet. And see how I keep the words, the units. I keep the units with the problem. So here I went through something we've been through a lot, how to reduce a fraction, dividing by 6 on both the top and bottom, and we get the 3/2 feet. So this is a real good beginning to the word problems you have. And just because I mentioned word problems, you might be getting a little stressed, a little tense. I have a lot of help on word problems. Don't worry. Students in the past, when they do the system that I've come up with, which is really just a system I learned in college, they realize that it is understandable. However, as a math teacher, I know these are confusing. I do. I know they're tough. I know they're confusing. I know they make people stressed. That's why this one's a good one to start out with. Change 5 feet 9 inches to inches. So here you got to know what the conversion factor is, and you probably do because there are 12 inches in a foot. Now the key here is to write the conversion factor 12 and 1, write the 12 on top, and write the 12 on bottom. And you're going to choose one of those. And the problem here is students are always saying, well, do I divide or multiply? Great question. It is. Writing the two conversion factors, 12 on top, 12 on the bottom, is going to answer the question for you. Do you divide or multiply? You don't have to answer that question anymore. So the way you do it is you start out with, we want to convert 5 feet to inches because it's 9 inches is already in 9 inches. So I start out with what I have, 5 feet. And this is how it works. It seems easier than it sounds. Because I have the word feet on top, which one has the word foot on the bottom? Choose that one. There it is right there. Choose that one. Look, put it there. The reason I choose the word foot on the bottom, did you know that numbers cancel when they're on the top and bottom? You know that. Words also cancel. The word foot here and the word foot there, they cancel, just like numbers. Look at the only word we're left with, inches. 60. That's how we know we multiply in this case. 5 times 12 is 60. If you trust in this system, it's called dimensional analysis. You'll get used to it. You really will, because in the last 3 sessions I've taught students, they get the hang of it, and they're very happy that they realize that this method sets them up. So we add 60 plus 9. That's how we get the 69 acres. All right, we're at 31 minutes on the video, and look how much pencil is on my screen. I love it. All right, here we go. Now, do not worry that there's a bunch of words, okay? Because I'm going to do something here. I tell students of all ages, I've taught 7th grade, and I've taught people that are 40, and I tell them all the same thing. Cover up extra numbers, and it helps you focus. It just does. Look what it does. Hopefully you're focusing. So I've, just like all the other math teachers in your life, I've probably underlined the key phrases. I've underlined the numbers and the words, the units, 32 gallons, and then the numbers, and then the units, 84 acres. And then I've outlined or circled, find what they want me to find. Look what I did. First thing, I wrote 32 on the top, 84 on the bottom, and I reversed it. That is step 1. And think about it. That's not a whole lot of math. That's not reducing fractions. That's not any of that complicated stepwise math. No, it's simple. It really is boom, boom. Now then what you want to do is they want you to find gallons of concentrate. So I have a handout called flowchart for solving word problems, and it really truly does work. But step 1 is writing these, and step 2 is what do they want in the answer. And I'm going to send you the flowchart for solving problems because it breaks it down nicely. The answer, they want concentrate to acres. That means concentrate on the top, acres on the bottom. This is mathematical thinking, absolutely, but it's not converting fractions. It's not graphing something. It's not figuring out slope. It's not any of those calculations, and yet this is mathematics. The answer is concentrate on the top, acres on the bottom. Step 1, write the 2 fractions like this. Pick the one with the word concentrate on the top and acres on the bottom. Pick that one. Really is that is the steps. So I pick this one and I do 32 divided by 84. They want us to simplify that, and that's it, 0.38 gallons per acre. Now, your first word problems this week are not nearly this complex. This is a word problem from probably module 3, that complexity. We want to get you used to solving word problems. Your word problem on your knowledge check this week are this level of complexity. And then this level, a little bit harder than that. But we're getting to this, okay? So I think honestly, I'm going to stop here because you're not asked anything that nearly this complex for about 2 or 3 weeks, or this complex, or the next complex. But focus on trying to understand how I got this one. Once again, step one was I took my numbers, I wrote fractions, I flipped them. That truly is step one. Step two, the answer. What units do they want? And the answer, write those things down. Concentrate to acres. Step three, pick the conversion factor with the same words on the top and the same words on the bottom. That's really it, and that'll help you a lot. So I'm going to leave it here, and in the other handouts, I would suggest you read all my notes on the other handouts, and there's another word problem there you might want to look at. But please email me at any time, and I'm totally glad to help. Thanks so much, and I will see you next Wednesday. It is on my calendar. Goodbye.